Welcome to Applied Leadership in Conservation. This is an extension of the Leadership for Conservation in Africa's Leadership Series, currently on LCA's website. And we usually have an expert in conservation joined in conservation in a conversation by an emerging leader, and they discuss important things around conservation, motivate and inspire young people. Now I am going to hand over to my colleague Robert, who is going to share with you one of our upcoming events with you. Robert, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Soletu. Good evening, everyone. My name is Robert Ganzamori, and I am a colleague with Soletu. I work for ShareScreen Africa as well. And for next week on Monday at 7 p.m., we will be exploring how Africa's young people, innovation, and indigenous wisdom are lighting up the path towards a sustainable future. And this talk will be delivered by an inspiring young person in conservation called Felicia Seipati-Mpasane, and we would like to welcome each and every one of you to attend, and it will be a great pleasure to see you all there. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Robert. We do hope to see you next week on the 25th of August at 7 p.m. Let's make it a family meeting. Now, heading on to business of today. Everyone, welcome to our fifth session titled Interviews, Impression and Influence. Taking us through tonight's talk, it is Abongile Teno and Sivuyile Mpateni. However, I am firstly going to introduce our first speaker, Sivuyile Mpateni, who is the founder and CEO of SIMA, which is an organization that is dedicated towards helping law students or graduates to secure VAC or opportunities within the workspace. Sivuyile, the floor is yours. You may take over.
Thank you, Soletu. Is this where I also go through the entire presentation, right? Just to make sure. Okay, awesome. All right. All right. Thank you so much for the invitation. It truly is an honor for me to be here and chatting to your audience. So I'm really, really honored to be invited to chat to your audience. Just a brief introduction, as I've already been introduced. My name is Sivuyile Mpateni. I head SMA. It is a legal career development company. But today I'm here on a different note, obviously, and that is just to talk around interviews, impressions, and influence. So I think where I might want to start is just by really sharing insights that have shaped not only my career, but of so many people's careers that I've helped over the years. Again, especially when it comes to interviews, right? And influence and impressions that you leave behind. So whether you are a student preparing for your first big interview, or you are a seasoned professional looking to sharpen your personal brand, today's session is really going to be valuable. And I do encourage people to get out notepads and pens if you can. I want you guys to take down as many notes as you possibly can. Okay. So I am also going to make this as fun as possible, as interactive as possible, and it's not going to be a long talk, I promise. And I'm going to also try and give you some real examples to sort of bring everything to life as well. So where do we start? I think part one is the interview and just understanding that this is more than just a Q&A, guys. So at SMA, right, the company that I lead, we often say that an interview isn't just an interrogation, okay, but it is your stage for storytelling. So if you do have a notepad somewhere, please just write that down, right? an interview is my stage for storytelling. Okay. And why is that the case, guys? Because your interviewer isn't just checking facts, okay? They want to understand who you are and what makes you different. So tip number one is really just around preparing that story, right? So think beyond your CV. Prepare stories that highlight your skills, your values, and really your problem solving ability. So, for example, imagine you are asked, tell me about a time you faced a challenge, right? Um, you wouldn't just want to say, well, I worked late to finish a project. Instead, you might want to craft a story, right? Something along the lines of, during my last semester, I volunteered to lead a group project. And halfway, one team member dropped out, right? And I rallied the others. We restructured our plan and we delivered on time, even earning praise from our lecturer. Okay, that's just an example because stories really show your resilience and leadership. Now, the second tip is also understanding that it's a two-way street, right? Interviews are conversations, they're not interrogations. So you obviously want to prepare thoughtful questions to ask your interviewer. And you might be asking, well, what am I going to be asking? What good questions can I ask in an interview setting? Well, I'm going to give you two. The first one is, what does success look like in this role? Okay. The second one could be, what challenges is the team currently facing? Okay. So what does success look like in this role? And what challenges is the team currently facing? Now, what this does is it shows your genuine interest, right? And gets people talking. So what you're trying to do is essentially shift the dynamic. The third tip I want to touch on is that presence matters more than perfection. Okay, nerves are normal. I get it. A lot of people get cold feet when they are going into interviews. That's fine. Okay, but how you carry yourself matters. So your body language, your tone, your eye contact communicate confidence more than flawless answers. So, for example, imagine two candidates, right, who answer perfectly. One looks you in the eye and smiles and leans in slightly, and the other one sort of avoids eye contact. They fidget quite a lot and maybe give very monotone answers. Which one would you hire? Right? And I'm sure you would want to say, obviously, the one who looked me in the eye, who smiled and leaned in slightly, and they were not fidgeting, they were not avoiding contact. Now, before we move on, just raise your hand, your digital hand, that is, or in the chat box, the comment section, just type out yes if you have ever frozen up in an interview or wished you aced it more confidently. Okay, so just raise your digital hand if you've attended an interview before, and I see a couple of hands, right? And you just froze. Or you were like, I wish I could have touched on A, B, C, D. I'm dumb, I'm stupid. Why did I not say all of that? Okay, right? So I'm sure you guys can relate. Now, the second part that I also just want to then get into as well is influence, right? Your invisible power. Now, influence is not just for CEOs or politicians, guys. You already have influence in every conversation, in every interaction, right? And how you wield it can open doors, it can create opportunities and really build powerful relationships. So, going to give you a couple of tips around how you can do that. Tip number one is you obviously want to build trust through authenticity. Okay, so people trust those who are genuine. And that means don't ever try to be someone you are not. Instead, you want to lead with your authentic values and enthusiasm, right? So, for example, instead of saying I'm a perfectionist, which is cliche, maybe share how you consistently work diligently to meet your team's goals and always seek feedback to improve. Okay. And the second tip is around listening more than you speak. Now, here's the thing, right? Influence grows when people feel heard. And great influencers are great listeners. Okay. And so you want to obviously nod, you want to paraphrase, you want to ask clarifying questions. So, an example, when a recruiter talks about challenges their firm faces, it goes without saying that you want to be listening actively, okay? Then offer solutions based on what you heard. Because when you're going to be doing that, you are showing that you've got insight and you've got empathy, okay? Very, very important. Now, the third tip is that small gestures, big impact, okay? Remember names, follow up on promises, and thank people genuinely, right? These small acts weave a web of influence, okay? So an example again here, after every interview you have with a company, you always want to send them a tailored thank you email, just referencing points from your conversation with them, right? And this is just going to keep you memorable. Okay, very important thing, because a lot of people who are attending interviews, they're not doing this. But if you're going to take the road less traveled and actually take the time to thank the person you were interviewing with, it just exponentially increases your chances of making an impact and leaving a lasting impression. Which leads me to the next part, which I want to then talk about around impressions, your lasting footprint. Now, impressions last longer than moments. And yes, the first impression is powerful, and studies say it's formed in just 7 seconds. Guys, not 7 minutes, just within the 7 seconds. I will already know if you've left, a lasting impression. So, how do you then go about leaving a lasting impression or a lasting footprint? The first tip is that you obviously want to dress for the role that you want. And yes, even in virtual interviews, you want to dress smartly, because what this does is it signals respect and it signals professionalism as well. So, example, wearing formal attire for virtual meeting sessions just raises your confidence, but it also sets the tone as well. So that is very important. And tip number 2, you mind your digital footprint. Now, what a lot of people don't know or understand is that your online profile is often the first place employers check. Okay, so whether you are on TikTok, child, whether you are on LinkedIn, Threads, Facebook, I can't think of Twitter, X, I believe it is called. Um, Keep those social media accounts sharp, right? So keep your LinkedIn sharp, professional and active. Don't have a LinkedIn account just for the sake of having a LinkedIn account. Try and, engage with people, get a professional headshot. If you don't have one, you can write articles on LinkedIn, just to let people know a bit more about who you are, your work, and what it is that you're doing. Share articles, right? Write those posts about your learning journey and engage with others in your field. I almost said in the legal field. I forgot that we're not dealing with lawyers here. But whatever your field is, right? I had a lady who said, she's a conservation specialist. Connect with those people, find out what people are doing, basically try and stay ahead of the curve. And tip number 3 is that follow through speaks volumes. And what do I mean by this? After meeting someone, your follow up matters just as much as your initial handshake or greeting. So, what you might want to do is send that personalized thank you. All right. Connect on LinkedIn with a note referencing your meeting. You might want to also perhaps deliver on any promises you made promptly. And those are just some of the tips I wanted to share with you guys this evening, but really just to remember that an interview is your opportunity to tell your story, and that influence is the invisible power that you wield every day, and impressions create a footprint that lasts far beyond any meeting you will ever have. And I encourage you guys to start, sort of thinking about your next interview, not as a hurdle, but as a stage for your unique story and influence. And if you were aspiring lawyers, I would say if you were looking at getting some tailored coaching or support, sort of preparing for interviews, we've got a graduate accelerator program that we run inside our company. But either way, I need you guys to understand that in as much as companies are looking for people to employ, you also owe it to yourself to approach these interviews the right way. And if you're not going to be approaching them the right way, if you're not going to be preparing for interviews and understanding what the agenda behind interviews is, then it's going to be an uphill battle. I speak with students, graduates on a daily basis. People have been looking for work for 3 years, 4 years. Some have even transitioned, out of the legal profession because they can't either secure interviews, or if they are securing interviews, they are not bagging those opportunities. And so I need you guys to understand that there's quite a lot at stake here. And we could have so many sessions on this alone, on what a pre-screening interview even looks like, what an informational interview looks like, and what that is about, what sort of type of questions you can expect in an interview setting. So the infamous "tell us about yourself" question, what is that about? What are they looking for? How far back do you go? Why do you want to work for us? Where do you see yourself in the next 10 years? Those are all leading you to ultimately securing any opportunity. And if you're not going to prepare, if you're not going to leave a lasting impression, if you're not going to have influence in that setting, then it's almost guaranteed that someone else will obviously secure that opportunity. Yeah, I hope the few tips and tricks that I've shared this evening have helped someone, even if it's just a key takeaway. It doesn't have to be everything that I touched on. And obviously, maybe we'll have a Q&A. I don't know, and I'll see if we can then move on to answer some questions. But thank you, Solethu. I will now hand over to you.
All right. Thank you so much, Sibongile. And I do hope that we were taking notes, because I did take a few notes from my end. And when you opened, you said we must always remember that an interview is not an interrogation, but it's actually an opportunity for you to tell your own story. And then further down, you did tell us that, interviews are genuinely an opportunity for you to basically market yourself and tell people who you are, what skills you have, and so forth. And I like it when you said influence grows when people feel heard, and great influences are actually great listeners. And I was like, oh, okay, noting that down for myself, because I also want to be a great influence in any sphere that I happen to be in. Everyone, you're more than welcome to put your questions in the chat box, and then we are going to ask Sibongile later on, and he might answer some of the questions that might be burning in the chat. However, now I am quickly going to move on to our second speaker, Abongile Teno. Abongile is a dynamic human resources professional with over a decade of experience spanning from HR strategy, labor relations, and talent acquisition. And fun fact about Abongile and I is actually we have worked together. And one thing I can tell you for sure, she's more than willing to employ you. You just need to stand out. Bongile, the floor is yours. Is there anything that you'd like to expand on, especially or cement on the things that Sibongile has already mentioned?
Yes, hi everyone. I am Abongile Teno. As I've already been introduced, I liked what Sibongile was specifically speaking about when it comes to the leadership. You understanding that an interview is a space for you to showcase your skills. That's basically what it is. It's an opportunity for you to showcase and highlight your skills, and it is a conversation more than anything. You are interviewing the people as much as they are interviewing you, because you don't, in as much as we have people that are looking for jobs, desperately looking for jobs with the higher unemployment that we have, you don't want to end up being in a position where the company culture doesn't fit with your values. So that's basically what I want to highlight as well from what Sibongile has echoed.
All right. Thank you so much, Abongile. I do want to ask you a few questions from my end, and I'd like to kick off with this one. As somebody who is constantly, in interview rooms and looking for impressions, and most importantly, looking for somebody who's going to influence you into hiring them and securing them a post within the company that you are in. So, what are some common mistakes people make when trying to make a good impression in an interview or in a professional setting? And how can that be avoided? Because, we want to leave a lasting impression.
Yes, definitely. I think the most common one is people not being prepared. If you're going for an interview, you have to research the company. You have to look at that advert, go through the duties that they speak on so that you can highlight the skills that are applicable for that role. So I would think that would be the first thing. And we've had interviews where you can tell a person is not prepared. I think the second thing would be not being present. You're not putting yourself out there in a position where you can leave the impression. If you are coming to an interview, dress the part. I would rather have you overdressed than being underdressed. like commonly, wherever we go, social media, in events, you have the lasting impression of the one person that has dressed nicely, who have carried themselves nicely, who spoke professionally with you, or who had something to share that left a lasting impression. So I think those are the main things. And thirdly, I would say, if you're going for an interview, you want to sound like you belong in that company. So that's where research also comes in. So those are the three things that people actually are not really largely focus on. I think those are the largely common mistake that people makes. And yeah, so those are the three that I would like to highlight.
All right. Thank you so much, Wongile. I believe that people in the audience are going to try their best to research the companies that they're interested in being employed at and put in the effort to stand out.
Yeah, also, I would like to just add to say, when you're going for an interview, get in the correct headspace. Listen to that one song that makes you happy. Happy people feed off. So if you're coming with your happy aura, it's automatically going to feed off in the interview. So get in the correct headspace. I think that is the one other thing. You know, people can't really switch off. You're human beings. Things happen while you're in a taxi or you're driving to this place, or if it's virtual, you had issues with your laptop at first, and now you're just finding yourself not being in a position to actually just move away and move over or past the situation that actually make you sad. So it's very important to get in the correct positive headspace.
All right. Thank you so much, Awangile. I am going to move on to my second question, which is, how can you effectively communicate your values and skills to others, whether it's in an interview or a professional setting? And how do you communicate your values in a point that, or in a way that aligns with the values of the company that you want to be employed at?
You would have to first know your values, know what drives you, in order for you to be in a position to effectively communicate that. Also, we often hear the most common values that people share in interviews. They'll say, I'm a team player. And you can't just make the statement, tell a story like Sivuyile shared. An interview is a space for you to tell a story. So you need to give in a scenario of where the teamwork has actually showed up. Like, for instance, you can use along the terms of saying, I was heading a project now with the Mandela Day, and we worked with people in different occupational levels from different departments. We've had to collaborate with them, and the collaboration actually helped us successfully do the duties that we had planned out for the Mandela Day, and we had fun while doing it. So those are the storytelling that you be in a position to actually coerce when you're in your interview as well. And your values need to speak to the values of the company. So you obviously need to research the values that the company shares with you and look at something that's common between you and the company and actually echo on those values. So if respect, for instance, is part of the values, or the most one would be innovation as part of the values, you would have to tell a story of where you were innovative, whether at university or in your previous jobs. Tell that story and emphasize on using the term innovation when you are telling that story. That will also show the alignment and that you've actually researched the values as well. And tell a story that's true, because if you ask about your stories, you're going to forget if they are not truthful. So always remember to be truthful and honest in the storytellings.
All right. Thank you so much, Abongile. I do want to ask, what does body language play in making a good impression? What are some tips that you'd give us for us to use our body language effectively?
Okay, so your body language is what speaks before you can speak. So if you get into a room and you're not making eye contact with the people that are interviewing you. You're looking down, you're looking edgy, you're scratching yourself, you're looking at the time, you're looking at your phone. That already will send off the people that are interviewing you. And rightfully so, because that alone will leave an impression that you are not really interested. You don't want to be here. You actually have somewhere important that you would rather go to. So your body language speaks before, and it leaves the impression even before. So most commonly we speak of fix your posture, make eye contact, believe that you actually belong there in order for you to actually echo that and remember to have and keep that posture. If you're gonna drag while you are having the interview, then that body language is not effectively coming through and it's actually working against you. So you often have to guard your body language, guard your posture, make use of your eye contact, but obviously don't stare. Like if you're looking at the person and just staring, it's also gonna feel obvious. You can tell it's not genuine. So be genuine in your gestures and move right.
All right, we have to move right, like Avangile has said. I do want to ask a question that I believe Savile did tap on a little bit on, but I also want your insight on it. So I wanted to ask, how important is authenticity in building trust and influence with others? And how can you balance being authentic with the need to make a good impression?
Yes, Fiviola really touched on this, actually, like the whole definition of how to go about doing that. But I would also just want to add to say, be genuine, be yourself. People can actually tell when you are not being genuine. Trust is built. The base foundation of trust of trust is you coming across as a person that can actually be trusted. Make use of making and an understanding that you want to leave an impression. The reason you want to have the people to actually have you as someone that they can trust, you have to be authentic in order for you to do that. So those are the things that I actually feel that the base is you being trustworthy, showing interest. And in order for you to leave influence, you have to show people that you actually belong in that space. You belong in the space actually shows that you are actually in the right space, and people can now cop you off and actually be under the impression that, hey, I didn't actually have a connection with these people, because people engage on connection, people engage on and trust based on relations that they are actually building. So you have to come across as the person that they can be trusted, and you need to also believe that you need to be authentic, be original, because if you are not original, it will down the line actually show. So you need to always be honest and leave an impression in a way that you want people to perceive you. So if you get into spaces, show them that you belong there. They will actually also believe that you actually belong there, because you can show your confidence is coming through as someone who actually belongs in those spaces. So for you to leave an impression, you have to definitely believe that you belong there.
All right, thank you so much. I do hope the students from TUT are trying so hard now to make sure that when they're applying for the jobs, they make sure that they look like they belong, or at least they also believe that they belong in the spaces that they'll be applying in. Well, I do want to urge everybody to in the audience to send questions in the chat box, and then we'll quickly attend to them. However, while everyone is typing, I am going to ask one or two questions of my own to Abongile. And I just wanted you to share some strategies for handling difficult or challenging conversations, and how do you stay calm and composed under pressure? Because reality is this: when you apply for a job, there's a need for it. You want to be part of that particular company, and now you are there, and all of a sudden you're feeling intimidated. How do you then, stay calm? keep your composure.
Okay, so like difficult questions in an interview, how do you navigate around that? And that's an interesting question, and a point we need to touch on, because there will be your sort of easy behavioral type of questions, like tell us about yourself and your family background, tell us about what got you into conservation, tell us about why you would like to work for this firm. So those type of questions are typically manageable, right? You wouldn't really struggle to maneuver your way around them. But every now and again, you get quite complex, maybe scenario-based questions, or in the legal field, you'd get questions on current affairs, on, judgments that are coming from the Constitutional Court, and what your stance is on particular matters that are being adjudicated in our courts. And so those type of questions are usually a bit tricky. And how do I come back from a question that I honestly cannot answer, right? So there are two things typically. Number one, it could be a question that is, somewhat tricky, but maybe at the back of your head, you've got the answer. And you wouldn't want to easily let go of that by saying, well, I don't know. It's there, it's somewhere, but you're not sure how to navigate that. So a point or a strategy would be to obviously ask the interviewers or the panel to kindly rephrase the question for you, or to perhaps guide you a bit more, so that you can lean forward into answering that question authentically and leave a lasting impression. Because here's what you don't want to do is, you don't want to say, I don't know, right off the bat, because what's going to happen is that after the interview, they're going to go into the deliberation rooms, and they're going to be talking about everyone who interviewed, and you don't want them to say, it was that candidate, Sivu, who couldn't answer a question. He couldn't even attempt to answer any of our questions. And what do you think about Solethu? Well, Solethu, she might have not answered everything, but I remember she even, leaned in and asked us to guide her a bit more, and we appreciated that, because it showed insight, it showed preparation. So although it was not quite correct, we still found her to be a better candidate, because at least she tried. She was able to think on her feet, and that is what companies usually appreciate. It's not always about getting the correct, perfect answer, because chances are, there's never like a perfect answer. Or if it's not even at the back of your mind, like this question is just going, and you have absolutely no idea what they're talking about, I always say to my students that you still want to be confident, right? Now, sort of your energy mustn't shift just because you got derailed, or just because there's a difficult question that has come your way. And so you want to be confident that, look, I have to be honest with you. I have no idea what that principle speaks to. And it sounds like an interesting question, and I'm more than happy to go and look it up, do my research on it, but have to be honest and say, this is not something that I've come across. I don't think we've tackled it in one of our modules, but it's an interesting question, and I am going to look it up, and I'm certainly going to email your HR and just get back to them regarding that. See, I didn't, fumble just because I didn't have the answer, because there's nothing you're going to do. You don't have it, you don't know. But rather just stay calm, be confident, still sound like you know what you're talking about, even though you have absolutely no idea what they just asked you. And that is just how I would, typically navigate that.
Thank you so much, Savile, for answering us. I am going to take a question from Achange Imanishimwe. He's saying, hello, a change from Rwanda. I would like to ask how to prepare for an interview as an introvert. How do how do you get out of that personality? And I do believe this question is for the both of you. So you can start Sivile and then Abongile will cement and expand.
Okay, so for me, the first one is that, look, introverts actually tend to be great listeners, right? So I would lean into that. Use your listening skills. So plan to use this as a strength in that interview by actively listening and responding thoughtfully to questions. And again, maybe plan your energy management again. So if interviews drain you, schedule breaks before and after, okay? Practice calming techniques like deep breathing or meditation ahead of time. I love just sitting in silence and just maybe also practicing visualization and just seeing yourself winning in that interview, see yourself getting in and shaking, the people's hands confidently, see yourself smiling throughout the entire interview. Everything is going well. So that's an art of visualization. And obviously preparing thoughtful questions would be also up right there, because having insightful questions ready to ask the interviewer shows engagement without needing to dominate the conversation. You don't always need to be the loudest person in the room. We just need you to be you. And if you are prepared for that interview, chances are, whether you're an introvert or an extrovert, you're going to do well. You can still find an extrovert who is going to be extroverted in an interview, but they've got absolutely nothing of substance to really touch on or to talk about.
Just to add on that, Sivile, I think also what you've spoken of around them being actively listening, you often have to regulate your emotions as well, because introverts can tend to speak softly, actually show the emotion. You need to regulate your emotions and use that skill of active listening, because when you actually actively listening, you actually be in a position where you can ask good questions that maybe the interviewer didn't actually think that would be asked, or things that can actually spark up into questions that are thought-provoking. So I would think that would be the way to go about it. Yeah. And also, interviews are usually solution-based, because they actually have time to actually think because they are listening. Bring that up as well.
Right, thank you so much, Abongile. We do have a question for you from Sanele Mfiki. She is saying, with your 10 years of experience, she would like to find out, is there anything that recruiters do to make sure that they do not miss out on great candidates due to their nerves or anxiousness? Interviews are stressful, as well as we all know. It would be nice to know if there are things that recruiters do or courses they take to ensure they don't miss out on great candidates due to these kind of things.
I would say that interviewers also at times also go to interviews. So they get interviewed as well. So they can understand how stressful it is. And sometimes that's why they would open up with a icebreaker, ask common questions that are not really much related to the interview, and try and get you off. If they can see that you're a little distracted, then they speak of something that is general, it's not more intimidating, rather, I would use the term. And also, I would say that recruiters, I would think that they would have courses that they take, like your emotional intelligence courses. We've got so many professional bodies that offer free trainings around that aspect. So yeah, there are courses that people take to try and be more in tune and understand.
All right. Thank you so much, Abongile. We have another question from Sunny Limpeki, and she is saying, what are interviewers really looking for when they ask the infamous "tell us about yourself" question? We all get it. We've all been in interviews, and when they ask us, "Tell us about yourself," you don't know whether to say, "My name is Soleto Sitiki and I'm this." How what are you really looking for when you ask this question as recruiters? And I think Sibuyile can also add on this because he does prepare candidates for such questions.
Yeah, I think the tell us about yourself question is more, it's usually the first question that they ask, because there's an understanding that people like it when they speak about themselves. But also it depends at what level that you are being interviewed for. So for instance, if you are an intern, when you tell them about yourself, they're looking to see, because they understand if you are looking for an internship, you don't have work experience. So you probably will speak of scenarios, your experience of things from university. So the tell us about yourself is just specifically just to assess how you deal with problems.
Thank you so much, Abongile. Sibuyile, please do tell us from the tips you've given your candidates, give us a few. How do we tell the interviewers about ourselves?
Yeah. So Abongile actually hit the nail on the head with this one. I think the only one thing that our students get quite nervous about is, well, how far back do I tell them about myself? Am I telling them about my family structure, how I grew up, my high school, how many cats and dogs I have at home, or do I start at where I am currently? I'm a third year student in conservation. I'm a final year, I'm a graduate, and I'm looking at, an entry level position. It really depends. But it's all about your unique value proposition, right? So it's not about giving them your whole life story. Tell them what you're doing now. And I always say it's just about connecting the dots and building a bridge for them, right? Because if you're going to be giving them examples, remember it's about storytelling as well and letting your personality shine. If you're going to be telling them about what you're doing, I know, in universities, institutions, you'll have opportunities to be part of student organizations, you'll be doing extracurricular activities and really honing in on your skills. Because remember, when you start working, those are the skills companies are typically going to be looking at. Have you worked with people? Meaning, do you have interpersonal skills? Can you manage your time? Do you have time management skills? Can you juggle different instructions all at the same time? And how they're going to be assessing all of that is from your story. So what are you going to share? So I think it's very important to immerse ourselves in leadership structures, be part of executive committees, leadership roles, put up your hand, obviously not to the detriment of your schoolwork or your academics, so there still needs to be a balance. But you can't not have something to talk about in an interview. And if you're not participating in these things, you're not going to have a story and you're not going to be able to tell them about yourself. And they're going to go for another candidate who was able to tell them a bit better about who they are. And so if you are then going to say, well, this is what I've done, I managed this project, give them tangible information as well. So numbers, if you did a sanitary towel initiative, for example, talk about your impact. How many female learners benefited from that? How many schools, numbers, did you go and donate sanitary towels to? If you raised funds for that, how much money? Because what that is going to do is it's going to give them insight into your leadership capabilities and what you are able to do as a candidate. And they want to see that. So also importantly, always link it to the role. So I'm doing this because I understand the demands of working at a company like yours. You need someone who has exceptional time management skills. And the reason why I've immersed myself in this organization is because I want to hone in on that. So understanding where you're applying and what that company is looking for, and using your story to then link it all together, build the bridge, connect it, and just sell it to them, right? Just sell what the buyer wants to buy.
Thank you so much, Sivuyile. I hope we've all heard sell what the buyer wants to buy. All right, sell only that. We do have a hand in the audience. It's from Sela Malanga. Sela, could you kindly unmute yourself and ask your question?
Thank you so much, Soritu, and thank you so much to our two speakers. I'm really enjoying this discussion. And one question that I find so hard to answer during the interview is when they ask on your salary expectation, what do you think is the best answer? Do you have to tell them what you're thinking, or you tell them like you're okay with what their organization pays people at that position, or how do you tackle that question? What's the good way to tackle that question?
Yeah, so I think maybe Awongile was, better suited to answer this one because it's, from the work that we do at SMA and the students that we work with. But what is maybe one advice that I can share from the top of my head now that I'm thinking about, typically, and guys, companies are different, right? So they will all do things differently. They will ask this question differently. What typically happens is before you even go into your interview, they will send you an email with, a list of questions. Tell us about this and that. And one of those questions would be, what is your current salary? And what is your expected salary? This is before the interview stage. And one grave mistake a lot of people will make is they will exacerbate what their current salary is. So let's say, sorry, you're earning 15,000. You will email back and say, I am currently earning 25,000 rands, and therefore I'm justified in saying I'm looking for 30 or 35,000 rands. Now, what usually then happens is they will write back to you and say, okay, we've heard, great. Can you provide us or furnish us with your pay slips? And you obviously can now understand how nuanced and intricate and tricky that is, because you've already lied that you're earning 25 instead of 15. So always be honest. I think let me just start there. If you're earning 15, don't be shy to say I'm earning 15. And other companies might get annoyed because I know some people are thinking, well, what if I don't want to tell them, or like it's none of their business? And that's a risk, right? Because some companies might understand, some might just not understand and just be like really, really annoyed at why you are wanting to disclose that information. And so what I would typically advise is that it depends on your circumstances, just number one. So if you're a recent graduate and you're just looking for a job, and maybe let's say you're not really too concerned about the salary and how much you're going to get paid, then the strategy there would be, well, I understand that this company has got a budget, so they're going to probably stick to their budget. So I'm just going to be honest and say, well, look, currently, that's not what I'm focusing on. I'm looking for experience. I'm an entry-level professional. And so anything market related, would make sense for me, because here's what's then going to happen. You might hit above their target. So let's say they've got a budget of 10 and you go in saying 20, immediately right off the bat, you are like, no, thank you. Let's look at Solethu and Sela, who maybe will be within our budget. So I would say maybe if you're comfortable and you're happy and you're not really concerned about salary and constraints, just say, right now I'm just looking for an entry-level position that's going to pay me well, because then when they make you an offer, you will still get to see the contract and how much they're offering you. Then only can you either decline, because at least you've gotten the contract, or negotiate based on your unique value proposition or your skill set. It's obviously different now when you are a bit more experienced, and you're going through the same process, right? But you never want to give them a specific number or like a specific value. Give them a range that you would be happy to look at if a contract came back and it was that figure, but a reasonable range, right? But also tell them that you are open to negotiations as well. You're not set on that figure or that X amount, and hear what they're going to say. Regarding the law on this, it hasn't yet come into effect. So there are talks, it has been tabled. I think a lot of companies are still maybe taking advantage of it before it actually comes into effect. But yeah, that's my 2 cents on that.
All right, thank you so much. I see we do have Abongile back. However, I am going to move on to the next question. And if you'd like, Abongile, you can first answer or continue with the part of the question, because we genuinely didn't hear most of what you said. However, I am going to ask the question from Lazarus Esther. He's saying, greetings, I'm Esther Lazarus from the University of Namibia. My question is, how can one prepare for a virtual or a panel interviews differently from a one-on-one interview? So basically, how do you prepare yourself for a virtual interview compared to a one-on-one, or where you basically be in a company's office and be interviewed?
Just to take on that question, I would say you need to check your network. Don't be in a position where your network is losing you. Unfortunately, technology is at some point things that you can't really predict. You would have issues with your network, and you just need to, if you are in that situation, write to the person that is actually interviewing you to say, I am having network issues at the moment. Can we reschedule if you want to reschedule? Or you would ask if they can maybe just give you grace if you do disconnect. I'm going to ask for that as well, because I see I've been disconnecting as well. Apologies for that. Obviously, you need to put measures in place. You would have to check your data if you want, if your Wi-Fi is giving you issues, and just have that as a backup. Also, just one-on-one interviews, I think those are the most easiest, because you have just one person that you really need to impress and engage with, unlike when you are preparing for a panel interview. So really the way around how you go about the preparation is basically the same. If you are preparing for a panel or for a one-on-one, but one-on-one is just easier because it's just one person that you need to make eye contact with. You don't find yourself in a situation where there's two people and you're only focusing your attention and your energy on one person, making the other person fall out. And that usually happens also when you have people in a more senior role and maybe a junior position that are both interviewing you. You obviously don't want to come across as someone that is not polite, so you need to give them the fair attention. You don't want to be labeled as someone that is giving attention to the higher person because they've got more hiring power than the other one. You need to be polite and divert your attention to both of them. I think basically just the preparation is the same. If it's virtual but a panel, and it's virtual with just one person, the preparation is basically the same. I think that's just the energy and the time that it takes, because you just only have to impress one person, unlike when you are in a panel. But for virtual, always check your internet connection. If you have interruptions, be in a position where you can actually speak, and maybe email or text or something to the person that's going to be interviewing you that you are having challenges.
All right, thank you so much, Abongile. Sibuyile, would you like to expand on that, or should I go to the next?
No, I'm good on that one. Yep.
All right. I see in the chat we have Dr. Ogilvy. You can unmute and ask your question or make the comment.
Hi. Thank you. This was an amazing presentation from all our speakers. I just got a comment. Most of my students that I've linked on tonight are going into their third year. That's their practical year. Remember, our degrees are 3 years. So the first 2 years are full-time studying, and the third year is they need a work integrated learning position. Most places do not pay students because this is seen as a student year. So they've got to gain experience in order to graduate. They have to finish their third year, else they will not get their diploma. There are, if they're lucky, they do get paid, but most places they do get accommodation. They get good accommodation and they get good mentorship. But yeah, it's very difficult, and we have spoken to our students in this regard. Once they start discussing what is my salary going to be or how much are you going to pay me, it's remember, we've got competition out there, and we don't want to lose many of our posts, and we fight very hard for them. And I firmly believe my students deserve those posts because I've seen them in action and I've seen them working very, very hard. So yeah, so I'm just saying now most will positions, most learnership positions do not offer payment, but they do get accommodation and they get an amazing year. It works like this for many years. So I don't know if our guest speakers can comment on that.
Okay, so I think the comment for me would be SETAs do have grants for work integrated learning. So companies obviously would need to apply for that grant if they know that they're going to be taking students in for work integrated learning. So I think also, I'm not sure if, because I know that at some point students can individually apply for WIL grants. I'm just not sure how about that does happen in terms of the person or the institution. I'm just not certain how to go about that, but I obviously can find out and maybe just send through to Soleto on how you can go about individuals applying for the grant themselves. And then, but now that I think also, and then they get paid by SETA. But now, obviously, the companies link this type of things to BEE. So if you're not in the payroll, so they don't really get much linked to BEE for you. But obviously, I guess you can, because if the SETA is paying a stipend, then the person is not on the payroll of that company. So I'm not sure. I think what I would comment to say, the students need to have a discussion around that with the company. If it will be okay if they actually apply for the grant themselves so that they are paid stipend directly by the SETA, and then the company can only pay for the accommodation like you said.
It's very difficult if there is like 7 universities fighting for the same position. If my students do say, listen, do need a stipend or a basic salary, another student from another university may say, I'm willing to do it because I want to graduate. So they may take that student on. So my students are in a catch-22. We have fought as hard as what we can, but they do get the TUT bursary as well. So it's not as if they're starving. all right? They've got a bursary and they are a registered student. The main thing is we need them to graduate and we need them to get that diploma behind their name so they can get in their feet properly, firmly cemented into that career. So yeah, I'm a little bit wary of my students going in and asking, hey, how about a salary? All right, they may just lose out on that position and they won't graduate. They won't finish their diplomas. And then they're on the, I don't know, I'm very worried.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Cheryl, for that comment. And I believe that your students will take that into consideration and as a word of advice from you for the betterment of them acquiring their diplomas at the end of the year. I do see that we have Seipati Pasane on the audience. Could you kindly unmute yourself and ask your question or pass your comment?
Hi everyone. I hope everyone can hear me clearly.
Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you. Just quickly wanted to support what Dr. Ogilvy was saying. So I was mentoring some of the students at WESA. I really do support the idea of not vouching or standing out too much on salary and stipend. And what Abongile said was actually very nice too, because you do get to apply for this stipend or salary for yourself on the side, and then just inform your superiors or your supervisor at the actual site where you are located. And that becomes a little bit easier than just going straight to the actual conservation space and saying that I want to work with you, but I would really like to have a stipend. It really reduces your chances. I don't want to lie. We've had to do some interviews in taking in work integrated learners, and we really opt for the ones that are for experience more, because then you are very eager to be in a conservation space and you're not just out for the money. And just for a little bit of context, when I was doing my work integrated learning, I had a friend of mine who opted for salary. Won't mention names, but opted for salaries, but I got to have a way longer experience and got way better experience, got way better supervisors in terms of just not even looking into salary. But then they struggled and couldn't even finish, had to move from one place to the next because all they were just thinking about was just salary, not thinking about the actual movement of who's going to be there for you, who's going to mentor you, who's going to show you where is there enough space for you to do your practicals? Is there enough space to do your vegetation assessment surveys and all these things? So you need to look at it in a broader space, not in just a salary type of mindset. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Seipati, for that comment. We have come to the end of our talk. I would like to thank Abongile and Sivuyile for sharing their valuable insight and expertise with us today. The presentation was truly inspiring, and we are grateful for the time you took to be with us. I also do want to share with you that we do have another talk next week, Tuesday, on the 26th of August. It is going to be led by Dr. Nicholas Funda alongside Tom Sange. They're going to be speaking on building and leading value-based teams. So we do hope to see you next week on Tuesday at 7 o'clock. Let's make this a family meeting. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. I see Dr. Cheryl would like to say a few words. Dr. Cheryl, you can unmute.
Sorry, Nicholas Funda is amazing. Well done in getting that man on board as well. He's also one of our ex-lecturers at TUT, and he molded a lot of students. So my students, I hope you hear me, and those who are on board, please link on, because Nicholas Funda is also great. I've got a meeting with him tomorrow, and yes, Sam Parks also takes on students. And they make a big difference in your life. So when those interviews come up, grab them. Be well prepared, just what the lecture gave tonight. Listen, be prepared, and know your space. Know who you are, and know a little bit about Sam Parks before you enter that interview. So be prepared. Thank you, my angel. You did an amazing session tonight. Very proud of you, and you made Share Screen Africa and LCA very proud.
Thank you so much, Dr. O, and thank you everyone for joining. We do hope to see you next week as we unpick more things on applied leadership and conservation. Everyone, have a good evening.